This is the latest update on day 32 of the US-Israel war on Iran, and despite fresh talks from Donald Trump about ending the conflict within 2 to 3 weeks, the fighting happened overnight tells a different story. Across Iran, US and Israeli strikes hit Tehran, Isfahan, and several other cities again. In Tehran, repeated overnight raids struck the area around Mehrabad airport, damaged power infrastructure, and caused blackouts in several neighborhoods before electricity was restored. In Karaj and nearby industrial towns, more sites were hit, while in central Iran, Isfahan saw some of the heaviest strikes yet. A US official told the Wall Street Journal that the bunker buster bombs were used on a large ammunition depot there. And Trump himself posted a video of huge explosions from Isfahan online. Iranian authorities also said 8 people were killed in an attack on a cargo boat near Qashm Island, close to the Strait of Hormuz. Elsewhere, a major pharmaceutical sites west of Tehran were badly damaged. Officials say more than 2,000 people have now been killed in the US-Israeli strikes since the war began. Inside Iran, the message from Tehran remains one of defiance, not compromise. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi told Al Jazeera there are no negotiations with Washington, even though messages are being exchanged directly and through intermediaries, including US envoy Steve Witkoff. He said that Iran has no trust left in the United States and replied that US has not replied to the US's 15-point proposal and wants a full end to attacks, not just a ceasefire. He also made it clear that the Strait of Hormuz is closed only to Iran's enemies and said Tehran is fully ready for any ground attack.
Nothing like this exists right now. Countries usually send messages to one another either directly or indirectly. This is not called negotiation, but this does exist right now. We have received messages from the US. Some are direct, some are through some of our regional friends. And wherever it is necessary, we reply to these messages. However, no negotiation has taken place, and the reports about that are not accurate. Discussions through messages are ongoing, and Mr. Witkoff has sent messages directly. Like I've said, this does not mean negotiation. These exchanges happen during both peace and war.
President Masoud Pezeshkian echoed that line, saying Iran wants the war to end but only guarantees against another attack. At the same time, top IRGC commanders say their enemies are humiliated and state television has been openly preparing the public for a war of attrition, possibly US ground invasion, and even harsher crackdowns at home. 2 people were executed on Tuesday, and Iranian authorities say new indictments have now been issued against 200 people accused of helping the US and Israel. Meanwhile, Iran's military says Israel, not Iran, was behind the attacks on the desalination plant in Kuwait. But across the Gulf, the wider conflict is still escalating. Kuwait reported a large fire at an airport fuel tanks after what it was called a brazen Iranian drone attack. The airport has now been repeatedly targeted since the war began, and Saudi Arabia has now opened bus links for travelers leaving Kuwait to airports in Daman and Qesma. Saudi air defenses also intercepted more drones in the past few hours. In Iraq, the Tehran-aligned Islamic Resistance said it carried out 19 operations against US bases in Iraq and across the region in the past day. While operations against US bases in Iraq and across the region, while Katab Sayyab al-Shuhada warned that if US troops used Kuwaiti territory for a land invasion of Iran, the conflict would move from a limited battle to an all-out war. In Israel, missile fire from Iran continued overnight, with alarms sounding in Jerusalem and the Shalfa region. Israeli media has said the latest launches were either intercepted or landed in open areas, with no immediate casualties reported. But politically, Benjamin Netanyahu has now secured a major victory at home. Israel's parliament has passed the annual budget, meaning his government can stay in power until the fall. Opposition leaders blasted the budget, saying it protects political allies while ordinary Israelis paid the price of the war. Former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett said the austerity measures would cost the average Israeli household around 10,000 shekels a year. On another front, Israel says 4 more soldiers were killed in southern Lebanon, pushing the number of Israeli troops killed there since March 2nd to at least 10. In Lebanon, Israeli strikes were also continued deep into Beirut. One appeared to be a targeted strike on a car south of the airport area, killing 2 people inside. Minutes later, Israeli warships struck Jana in Beirut, setting cars on fire and killing at least 5 people. with more than 20 wounded. First responders said there were many of the victims were civilians, including displaced people shuttling nearby in a school. Hezbollah, meanwhile, said it is in a fierce clash with Israeli troops in southern Lebanon and has launched more rocket attacks on Israeli forces and military linked to targets in northern Israel. Back in Washington, Trump's messaging is shifting again. He now says Iran does not need a deal for the US to leave, and that America could stop attacking within 2 to 3 weeks once it believes Iran has been pushed back so far it cannot pursue a nuclear weapon.
And have you spoken directly with
Iran
anyone
doesn't
in
have to
Iran?
make a deal, no. Yeah, I've spoken to a lot of people. It's a new regime. They are much more accessible. They are right, they said, we have a present for you, Mr. President, out of respect. And they said, wait a minute, you want me to answer the question? You're a fresh person. We've had a lot of problems with you, haven't we? No, they don't. You asked me a question. No, they don't have to make a deal with me. When we feel that they are, for a long period of time, put into the Stone Ages, and they won't be able to come up with a nuclear weapon, then we'll leave. Whether we have a deal or not, it's irrelevant. Now, it's possible that we'll have a deal because they want to make a deal. They want to make a deal more than I want to make a deal. But in a fairly short period of time, we'll be finished. They will not be able to do a nuclear weapon for years. And when they are ready, maybe in a long time from now, able to do a nuclear weapon, you'll have a president that will be like me and that he will go there and he'll knock the hell out of them again because they cannot have a nuclear weapon. They are very radicalized people. They're very sick leaderships. And I will say, though, that the leadership we're dealing with now, the new regime, because we have a new regime, and the new regime is much better.
At the same time, Marco Rubio says the finish line is coming soon, while Pete Hegseth says Washington is ready to keep negotiating with bombs. Trump also lashed out at allies like the US and France for refusing to join the military push in and around the Strait of Hormuz. He told countries like Britain to either buy American fuel or start learning to fight themselves. France was called very unhelpful, especially over flight access. Britain pushed back too, saying it remains a key ally even if it's not joining the war. Washington is also trying to project confidence about the battlefield. CENTCOM says US forces dropped more precision munitions to further degrade Iran's ability to project power beyond borders and posted a video of a strike in mountainous areas. But there's also controversy around US targeting. The New York Times reported that a short-range US precision strike missile may have been used in a deadly attack on a sports hall and residential area in Lamerd on February 28, where Iranian media said 15 people were killed, including children. CENTCOM has denied that, saying US forces never struck Lamerd and insisting the video evidence does not show a PRSM. And there is even one more layer to this war: economics. Oil markets remain on edge, and even though Trump's suggestion that the war could end in 2 to 3 weeks briefly lifted Asian equities, Brent for June delivery rose again, and Reuters says front month Brent logged a record monthly gain of 64% in March. LSEG analysts say that the mix of weak diplomatic progress, continued maritime attacks, and ongoing threats to energy assets still keep supply risk heavily tilted upwards. At the same time, stock markets in Asia have bounced on hopes that the conflict may not drag on indefinitely, with Japan's Nikkei, South Asia's KOSPI, and Singapore's Straits Times all moving sharply higher. So the picture on day 32 is this. The bombing inside Iran is still intense. Iran says there are contacts but no negotiations. The Gulf remains exposed, Lebanon is still burning, and the US is publicly talking about winding down while militarily keeping every option on the table.